Hello and welcome to Omnitas webinar on ERP systems. Do you really need one or just think you do? I'm Thomas Karlsson. I'm the CEO and founder of Omnitas Consulting, and I'll be guiding you through this. So I will be talking about what is an ERP system. We'll be talking about the core strengths of an ERP system, like the sweet spot where it makes a lot of sense. I will also talk about all the problems and challenges that are related to ERP systems, because that list is quite extensive as well, if I'm being honest. And then I'll share my experience being a super user and local implementation person of an ERP system in a really big organization. Okay, so super exciting. Let's go. Ask question in the chat. For you guys in the chat who's not present in the room, I have someone that's going to help me read out the questions for you. So please ask them as we go. And I will be interrupted at logical intervals. ERP, it stands for Enterprise Resource Planning. In Swedish, just as a reference, it's called affärssystem, business system. So it has nothing to do with resources or anything when you translate it over to Swedish, which is really interesting because we can actually see a morphing in the Nordic countries of what an ERP system is used for as well. Very interesting. But enterprise resource planning. What resources? Well, that's the key issue, right? Which resources do you actually put in an ERP system? If we fall back to the core of what we're trying to achieve, the key aspects of an ERP, we want to be able to plan, budget, predict, and report. It's about reliability, having the toll gates, having the checkpoints, getting flags with inventory stocks is running low. Maybe we have automatic rules, so when component X is less than 10 left in inventory, we can already place an order for new ones and the system takes care of it. Those are that's when we're talking about ERP as a core offering, a core strong point. And I really want to start by this materials and inventory management. Imagine the fictive company of, I don't know, we call this the fictive company. We don't even need to give it the name. They do production. They produce this little product. It looks like a house with a chimney and or whatever. This is the product, right? This product is made up of 4 modules. Those 4 modules together makes the product. The modules, on the other hand, are made up by components. And this is, again, now we're talking about where the core sweet spot for an ERP is, according to me. Lots of inventory, logistics, heavy stuff. Components, modules, products, inventory, lead time, and such makes a huge difference, because a lot of other software, there's no hitting the fact that we represent Monday.com, for example. Doing inventory management in Monday, I wouldn't recommend it. So there are definitely a lot of ERP advantages. So in this case, we work with product, modules, and components. So what can the ERP help us with? Well, the ERP knows that we need 3 of the lines. We need 2 liters of the color to create the triangle module. We need these components to produce the quadrant module. This is what we need to produce the circle module. And this is what we need to create the rectangle module. They together are put together in a product, right? So each product then needs the following components, meaning that once a product order is placed, we can already start deducting our inventory based on what we actually know we need. And if we have, let's say, we're a company like Koenigsegg, who has 9 to 3 years queue to get your car, then you also know in the coming 9 months exactly what material you need when in order to finish the car, right? And that's, to me, again, I want to say this is the sweet spot of an ERP system. When an ERP system helps us keep track of something that's too complex for the brain to even fathom this, right? So it gives us inventory stock management. We keep track. We know all the time exactly every component, how much we have. We don't need to scan every module or every component, because just by placing the order of the product, we know what material is needed. We can do automatic flagging of this stock is getting low. Either we flag and you order, or we can actually, most of the time in most ERP system, you can integrate your suppliers to place orders automatically. But we can take that a first step further as well. We know what the production time is, right? So we can then plan that. So we know how long are we going to be busy with this product. It takes X amount of time to do each module. And then once each module has been produced, we have assembly time. We can also become so complex in this and say, you know, the square, it uses more resources, takes double the amount of time to do. And we know that it's a critical component in so many cases. So we can also allow ourselves to do overproduction of that module. So we always have it on the stock, because then we can shorten the complete assembly and production time with maybe half the time or something like that. And again, you're not going to hear me say this a lot, but I want to stress this again. This is where an ERP makes sense. It makes total sense in this situation, right? Tell me another category of software that will be able to solve this for you. I know people will claim to be able to do it in Smartsheets. I know there's project management tools that also claim to be able to do it, but they don't really do it. It's dirty, hacked workarounds. This is what ERPs are built for. This is what we come from. It's a reason why ERP systems are considered something for legacy mastodontal companies, because those are usually the one with a lot of components, logistics, and material. Want to take a pause and check in? Any questions from the chat so far?
No questions.
Thank you very much. All right, falling into what I think is the problem with an ERP. The problem with an ERP is the R, resources, right? Let me explain what I mean. So again, you remember the use case we talked about, materials and inventory management. So that's a nice little resource, right? Well, what about sales orders? Because we already have the production order, so why not just take the sales order and put that into the system, so we have all of those in the same system, right? Well, then the question becomes, should we integrate, or should we try and put CRM functionality in the ERP system, right? And then, because we have the sales orders, we now want to track what goes in and out. Then we need to put our internal purchase orders in the system as well, right? Creating them, approving them, tracking them. So all of a sudden we have a PO approval workflow in our CRM. And keep in mind that all CRMs are built for material, inventory, logistics to begin with, but then they've been adding these on. So approval workflows is something that is very UX intensive, right? If the user experience is very intense. You don't need to be a good UX person to do inventory management. So that's also one of the challenges of the ERP systems, that you add capabilities that these kind of developers normally don't work with. So it's probably one of the clunkier approval processes out there, because they don't work with approval processes. They don't work with those kind of UX thingies. Okay. We talked about material. Now money is a resource, right? Well, what other resources do we have? We have time. Time is also a resource. So now we put that in the ERP system as well. Production time, assembly time, right? Okay, is that a question?
Yeah, we've had a question come in. Should ERP also manage the actual production process, or is that kept independent?
Wow, good question. I would say it very much depends on the production process. If it's business as usual, more line work, like let's say a car, it could definitely monitor and keep track of it. If it's knowledge-based work, ergo creative, legal, or something like that, there are plenty of ERPs that are going to put pseudo functions in there, like project management. I would avoid staying away from that, because as well, again, the UX of a project management solution is very different than managing resources. And I'll actually come into that later in this slide as well. But good question. All right, so we talked about production and assembly time. That means that now we have a full idea of what the product actually costs us. Nice. What else? That means that we can start invoicing from the ERP system as well. Why? Why not? We automate, we build an invoicing module. We now have the sales order, the PO, the time, the invoicing. We can merge all together, and we can keep track of the total cost of a product and all the TBAs and all the things, right? What's next? Because there's always a next, because an ERP system is never fed. Well, now we already have all my production time. Why not put all my time, absence, vacation, flex budget, and so on in the system? So now it becomes a time reporting system for all time, and not only my production time, right? What does that mean? Well, now my ERP system also needs to take care of salary, because that's where the data sits. So now it's become an HR suite, sort of, with salary payroll production. And since we do have payroll, why not just have all HR processes in here, like the yearly salary review, peer reviews, performance reviews, and just put all the data in here, right? Why not? We already have the rest. I hope you see where I'm going with this. And it's never stops, really. It goes, and then after that, we have the various pseudo functions. And a pseudo function, we all know, right? It's a function that actually has no function. It mimics itself as a function, but it's actually just an argument that returns another function. Anyways, my point is that when you start seeing project case management, ticketing, and workflow elements in an ERP system, that sort of becomes the epiphany of bloatware. It's transformed into something else. It's no longer the core foundational idea of an ERP system anymore. Now it's starting to become a one ring system to rule them all, right? And these processes don't have much to do with each other than they go under the umbrella of resources. But I mean, what does sales order and PO has to do with salaries? Nothing. So we end up having a bunch of disjointed business processes in a system built by people who are really good at doing inventory and logistics. And I don't want those people to be the people that develops my time reporting application, right? Because that is a big human interface. So that's what I come down to, right? This is an example. I'm using them because they had very good material out here. This is not only Oracle and NetSuite. I just like their material. So you see, this is how they describe themselves, right? An ERP is and they're they're defining the word ERP on their own page with ERP is a category of business software, So they're recognizing that everything is disjointed, that automate business processes and provides insight and internal control, drawing on a central database that collects input from departments, including accounting, manufacturing, supply chain management, sales, marketing, and human resources. And you see the nice little circle. This looks awesome on a surface. Why wouldn't I want this software? If it does all of this, why don't I want it? But the problem is in the implementation, in the execution, not the idea of an ERP. So without lingering too much on this slide, like when you buy an ERP system, you expect one source of truth in one view, always up to date. Ergo, this Monday report, this Monday dashboard, for example. What you get is 200 plus different reports that don't speak to each other, and in best case, updates once a day. And we're expected to be agile leaders on that kind of data. And just as a added, you expect drill down functionality. Well, you can pay 100 to 500K more, and maybe it's possible. Maybe it's not even possible because of how the data is structured. It's not even drill down friendly. Making a pause here for questions. From the audience? No? Good. So now we went through the core idea, what it fits well, and what some of the challenges. Let me give you my own experience. So I've been working with an ERP system between 2008 and 2017. It was in the Swedish Armed Forces, and the software was SAP. We were doing it for inventory management, logistics, HR, and salary. Those were the three major brackets. I was a super user and a part of the local implementation group, working very closely with the central implementation project as well. So very good insight, understanding stuff like master data and all that fun stuff that you will learn. There's a lot of ERP exclusive taxonomy. So why did the Swedish Armed Forces buy SAP? And I want to preface it. They bought SAP. It could have been any ERP system, right? They bought SAP. So what was the pitch? Why did they buy it? If the government would ask you to set up another mechanized battalion, would you know what it would cost, how long it would take, and what material would be needed? So they had zeroed in on the biggest pain point of the armed forces leadership. This was in a period where the armed forces were constantly over budget. They couldn't keep to budget. Everything got bloated. So it felt like the armed forces didn't know what the hell they were doing. And then they came in with this pitch in the perfect storm at the perfect time. They probably prepped this for several years, just waiting for the right moment. This was the pitch. And the Swedish Armed Forces bought it. So everything is not good and bad, right? There's a good mix. So inventory and logistics, I would say it went rather smooth. But the main reason why it went smooth was that the Swedish Armed Forces was replacing a very old DOS-based logistic and inventory management system. It was literally the function keys that they had to use to like log stuff in and out of the system. So this modernization was needed. It was a lot of hurdles. It was a lot of pain points, but it was a welcome change. And it actually has benefits like the system has all the measurements. It knows if you're transporting carabiners, you know how many you can put in a box. It knows how big the box is, meaning you can easily understand how many liters of container you would need to ship 50 guns to Africa, for example. So again, you falling back to where I said, where is the sweet spot? The sweet spot is with material, logistics, and inventory. That's where ERP systems are golden. Yes.
Yeah, we've had another question there pop up in the chat from Aaron. In your opinion, is an ERP the best solution or a set of integrated best-of-breed programs?
Wow, good question. Obviously, there's a lot of software on the market that calls themselves ERPs, and they're trying to be all-encompassing. You could build an ERP by just attaching detached systems to, let's say, a data lake or something like that. That would be the same thing. That project will probably be a lot more costly, though, than buying a dedicated ERP. And it very much depends on what you want to do. We had one project where we used an expense software. We used Microsoft Dynamics, and we used Monday together with a data lake. We built what I would call an ERP Lite. And it was consisted of 5 different softwares. Obviously, most ERP systems, like I showed on the slide, they integrate to something, minimum your CRM, most likely your accounting software, or it becomes your accounting software, but it can integrate quite well as well.
So would you say that ERP systems generally evolve in businesses to become an ERP rather than businesses setting out to get an ERP initially?
No, it's the latter, right? You don't all accidentally wake up one day and realize that your IT stack has turned into an ERP system. It's a very targeted, specific approach of implementing software and thinking about data. So it's a targeted, intentional journey that you go on. All right, so inventory logistic wise, it was quite nice in the armed forces. Of course, everybody hates change, but it was managed and the solution was pretty okay. It helped that the software also looked like it was from Windows 95, so at least it was an upgrade from DOS. One big thing I have to add here, and this is a funny one. I can't even believe that this is actually true. Regiment. So a regiment is a permanent unit of an army typically commanded by a lieutenant colonel and divided into several companies, squadrons, batteries, and often into 2 battalions, right? This is what a Swedish Armed Force base was called. So we had a bunch of regiments scattered around Sweden. These are the bases, right? I was, for example, at P7, Regiment P7, Panzer 7. In SAP, there's something called an org unit. An organizational unit or functional units in an enterprise, according to a task, are divided up with an enterprise. These can be departments, group, and project teams. For example, organizational units differ from other units in an enterprise, such as personnel areas, company codes, business areas, etc. Since we got SAP, this is now what a base is called post-SAP, because it was too expensive and too difficult to change the object category name in SAP. So the armed forces changed their doctrines to reflect a unit name in SAP because it was too hard to change it and it would have cost too much. I mean, in most organizations it's fine, but keep in mind that the armed forces is it's a very tradition-heavy organization. The fact that our bases are no longer called regiment but org units, it's a very big thing. It was the single biggest thing that actually created the biggest hurdle for adoption or acceptance of this new SAP system. I mean, other than UI stuff and so on, but this was the single biggest one that really rubbed everyone the wrong way. Why is it like this? Because an ERP system is a very specific set of data. Everything acts in a very pre-programmed way. If you're used to something like Monday where it's flexible, you can configure everything. You can't configure everything because the data volumes and the scalability and the aggregation are so complex. So there's very little freedom allowed in an ERP. So it's very likely that you will, in some capacity, have to change your business processes around the ERP system. Keep that in mind. Okay, HR and salary, there was a lot of challenges. So instead of listing them all, I just want to show you what the life was for the grassroots level. So you have a soldier, right? This is a soldier. What their job, they were full-time employed, 40 hours every week. Their job was to be better soldiers, right? The soldier was expected to report all their time, absence, flexible working, as well as overtime daily. Keep in mind that the armed forces is on a closed network, so it's not just something you can do in your mobile. SAP was run on a closed circuit network in the whole national network of the armed forces. Typically, a platoon has 2 of these computers to share. That's 30 to 50 people that shares 2 of those computers, and they're expected to report daily. Yeah, that's not happening. They could even receive their pay slip in SAP. If they had to travel anywhere with work, they had to book their travel through SAP. They managed their uniform inventory and everything like that through the system. And just to show how it took a long time, but nowadays there's 1 or 2 SAP admins per company that just helps the soldiers report everything that needs to go into the system. That's how we solved that the system was bad for the end user. And just to give you an idea, each regiment, we have around 25, 30 regiments, something like that, has 3 to 8 companies. So 3 to 8 times 2, that's 16 times, okay, I can't even do the math anymore. Basically, it's more than 200 new FTEs just to input data in SAP for someone else. And then we take the platoon leader. So the platoon leader is leading 3 to 5 squads. They're responsible for training, they're responsible for scheduling, they're responsible for maintaining the curriculum and driving their platoon goals versus stanags and everything. Okay. They need to go into SAP and schedule every single soldier every single day with shift codes that was generated. So it was six numbers in a row, and those different numbers meant that, oh, you're working between 8 to 12 and then from 1 to 6. That would be one shift code, for example. And there were so many combinations. We had, I think, 9,000 shift codes in the armed forces. This was so complex to manage and maintain, so they actually built a spreadsheet to help the platoons with this. So they had a spreadsheet where they could insert the work times, and then they used Excel VLOOKUP functionality to generate the shift code for them, which they then had to copy paste into every single soldiers every single day in the system. Sorry, it brings me back. I see a lot of heads nodding over there, like, oh my God. Yeah. They manage all vacation and absence for their whole platoon in SAP. They do quarterly performance review in SAP. They manage the yearly salary review in SAP. Again, that was a process that was so complex. So we did it in spreadsheets, and then we just copy-pasted the result into SAP because it was not possible to do it in the system. At least not for the 6 year I was there during SAP and where the yearly salary review was done. I don't know now if they're actually able to do it 100% in SAP, but by then it still did it in spreadsheets. And they approve all self-reported time. So if someone has reported overtime and it doesn't get approved, it doesn't go to the pink slip, right? Or pay slip, sorry. A platoon leader has no way of correcting wrongly inputted time, so they just need to decline the whole period, and then the soldier needs to resubmit. And they monitor the flex saldo and everything like that. And they approve the travel requests. How much time do you think this platoon leader is now spending on the field with his platoon, training and educating them? No, that has been left up to his first sergeants and sergeant majors, because the platoon leader is stuck at the desk doing SAP. We're getting to the conclusion, so bear with me, guys. We're not going to be much longer. So the SAP in the armed forces concluded 2016 after 8 years. The cost by that point was $304 million, and it was $100 million over budget. Was it done? No. The end of the project was just that we are closing down the project organization, and we're moving all of these 200 people that have been working with SAP implementation for 8 years back to their organizational units, and then the work continues there in the line organization in the normal budget. I think low estimation, the SAP implementation in the Swedish Armed Forces has generated more than 500 full-time employees. And like I said, this is not done. It continues to cost maintenance and further development. It's just managed within the normal hierarchy organization and not as a project. Are we doing with questions? Perfect. So the pitch, 15 years and 350 million later. If the government would ask you to set up another mechanized battalion, would you know what it would cost, how long it would take, and what material would be needed? What do you think? Yes, no, yes, no? No. Too much data quality issues to reliably use the information for this purpose. But they managed to transfer logistics and inventory over to SAP with high, let's call it CSAT. They do all the HR processes in SAP today, and they are constantly adding workarounds or new improvements to reduce administration. And now it is the core foundation of the Swedish Armed Forces. If SAP would stop working one day, nothing would work anymore. So yeah, to summarize this in some kind of way with this next slide here, an ERP system is a mastodontal project. It is a big thing, and you need to make sure that you are in a sweet spot. I would argue that if your concern is material, time, production, inventory, stock, and you want to use it for things, right, like a coffee mug or computer components, go for it. If you think that you can replace human interactions with an ERP system, you're more likely doomed to fail. Yes.
What steps can a business take to learn and understand if using an ERP system is correct for them, or if they need to, have a hybrid solution with multiple products?
Yeah.
If they think they've got the correct ERP system already.
So the steps the organization can make to understand if the ERP system would help them or not would be obviously self-evaluating this, like how many human interactions, how many software values am I trying to replace? I would consult, like Omnitas Consulting. We help you in understanding your challenges, help you find the perfect solution, and we rarely go with the solution that our client comes. They come and say, we have this problem, we think this is the solution. We help them verify or validate if that is the correct solution or not, because it doesn't really matter to us. But you can also engage with ERP consultants. If you feel like you will clearly see when the professional service part of the quote overweights the system licenses, you are probably subject of a bunch of workarounds and hacks of the ERP system to realize your capabilities. Because that's something we see a lot as well, that an ERP system wants to be so much. As a salesperson, as a vendor, as a supplier, I want to be your one source of truth. So I never turn down a use case. I just make you pay more to solve that problem as well. As an example, the implementation consultancy service of the Armed Forces was IBM. During 2015, they invoiced $70 million in professional services to the Armed Forces. That, to me, is the indicator that we're trying to put a square peg through a round hole. And with that, I think I'm done. I need to do all the normal plugs, right? Sign up for a newsletter, like us on LinkedIn, social media, give Gustav the video guy a high five. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and thank you for showing up.